And nobody better to comment on this than Michael Rubin of the American Enterprise Institute, who remains with us via Skype. Michael, I thought it was supposed to be a diplomatic exchange. That photo opportunity sounded like an opportunity to, to get kind of, if not down and dirty, to get very candid on camera, so to speak.
Well, you know, diplomacy is the ability to tell someone to go to hell with a smile on your face. Ultimately, that seems to be the state of things between President Obama and Bibi Netanyahu. Unfortunately, the reason for the tension is that while this may be politics for President Obama, Prime Minister Netanyahu considers the Iranian threat to be an existential threat. And indeed, when you start considering that, it's not just the idea amorphously of Iran having nuclear weapons that's the problem, but when you double down into the command and control, it would be the most ideologically rigid elements of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps which would have command and control. Then it seems that Bibi Netanyahu's concern about the existential threat is a little bit more valid.
Michael, yesterday the State Department harshly criticized Israel's decision to move forward with new settlements in East Jerusalem, saying that plan can alienate Tel Aviv from, quote, even its closest allies. What can you tell us about that?
Well, you know, there's two problems going on here. First of all, East Jerusalem, even under the Clinton administration peace talks, was understood to these neighborhoods in East Jerusalem to be under Israeli control in any final agreement. And so this seems to be a manufactured crisis. It seems that President Obama is much more comfortable as a zoning commissioner than he is as the president of the free world. And the last point here is that President Obama doesn't understand that the reason for the fight with Hamas and so forth isn't because of some grievance, isn't because of a housing project inside areas of East Jerusalem that Israel already controls. It's rather because of this not just ideology put forward by radical Islamists, and that's something which President Obama simply doesn't want to deal with. And in the United States, when we have an Islamist attack, it's workplace violence. In Israel, when you have a terrorist attack, President Obama is much more likely to blame the victim than the perpetrator.
Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't heard much about any flare-ups between Hamas and Israel right now, but in the wake of that State Department announcement yesterday, does that serve in a weird way as a provocation for Hamas to take more action?
Well, whenever you have the State Department effusing moral equivalency, then what you ultimately have is the empowerment of extremists, because extremists will figure, so long as President Obama is going to cut things down the middle, we might as well stake out a much more extreme position. At the same time, make no mistake, Hamas was defeated in this recent war, but by pushing for a ceasefire, Hamas right now is actively in the stage of rearming. Ultimately, that's why they're taking a strategic pause. They're not interested in a ceasefire leading to peace.
Michael, we got about 20 seconds. Crystal ball here. In a month, what will be the situation in the Middle East?
You know, in a month, it's going to go from bad to worse, so long as we don't have a coherent strategy.
Well said.
Well, that is concise, not optimistic, but concise and candid. Michael Rubin of the American Enterprise Institute, we thank you very much for your assessment of the Middle East, not only what's going on in Iraq and Syria with ISIS, but of course, what is transpiring in Israel and there on the West Bank, and perhaps most tellingly, the continued frigid relationship between President Obama and Prime Minister Netanyahu. What is your take on those candid comments at the photo op at the White House yesterday? Why don't you tweet us your remarks at Newsmax TV, #America's Forum, and we're coming back after this.